Hi, this video comprises a time signature quiz. How good are you at looking at a rhythm and working out what the time signature might be? So sometimes it's just simply a question of adding up beats in a bar and deciding if those beats are crotchets or minims or quavers. And sometimes it's just a little bit more complicated because you might have to think, how are the notes beamed together? What might that be telling me? So here we are, a few examples on the board here, A to F. And one way you could tackle this is to kind of pause for a moment and have a look through these rhythms and try and work out what you think the answers might be. So rejoin me or stick with it if you want to get straight on to sorting out what the answer might have been. Well, let's have a look at rhythm A. I wonder what you think the time signature ought to be here. Well, it's always a good thing to start by counting up beats, isn't it? And you can decide what you're going to count in. Lots of people like to count in crotchets when they can, or quarter notes, because that just is a unit that we're perhaps most used to. And here's a little clue if you're doing this as a theoretical exercise. Try to pick the easiest looking bar. So if you've got a bar full of all sorts of notes and complicated looking rhythms, but you've got another bar that's got something much more straightforward in it, that might be an easier bar to look at. Well, you might look at the two bars in A and think, well, you know, they've both got their complications, but the second bar is possibly slightly easier to work out if we're going to count in crotchets or quarter notes. Let's have a look at what we've got. Well, there's one beat here, isn't there, taken up by this note. Remember what a triplet's about. It's saying play those three notes in the time that it normally takes to play two of the same notes. So if I've got three quavers, but I've got this three saying it's a triplet, it's saying play three quavers in the time that it normally takes to play two quavers. Well, two quavers is one crotchet, isn't it? So it's worth thinking, okay, yeah, so that'll be the quaver triplet, so that's the eighth note triplet in the time of two eighth notes, that's one quarter note. So one crotchet, there's the second crotchet, and the minim takes up another two crotchets or another two quarter notes. So that's given us four beats, isn't it? One for this one, the second beat is here, and this one's taking up 3 and 4. Just to double check, have a look at the first bar or the first measure and see if it's the same. So there's the first beat. Well, two of these give me the second beat. This is 1.5, so that's 3.5. And this is worth half. That takes me up to the 4. So the right answer to that could be 4/4. I might also point out that it would be perfectly correct to write 2/2, because the way those notes are beamed together, grouped together, means that it works perfectly well in 4/4, and it also works perfectly well in 2/2. So if you wanted to go for 2/2, two minim beats in a bar or two half note beats in a bar, that's perfectly acceptable. While you're doing these as a theoretical exercise, it's a great idea to put them into practice and think, could I actually play that rhythm or clap that rhythm? So it really develops the ability to deal with rhythm accurately. So let's have a go at clapping rhythm A. We'll treat it in 4/4 for now, and I'll count the 4 beats. So a bar of 4 beats, and then we'll try clapping together. So here's 4 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the rhythm for A. You can always rewind this, of course, if you want to practice doing that. It's a very useful thing. I find most people read the pitch of notes more accurately than they read the rhythm of notes. So if you want some practice in rhythm, great way to do it. Okay, now what do you make of B? What's the time signature? Well, we've got loads of notes in this second bar, this second measure. Maybe it's a little bit easier to look at it in the first bar. Dotted crotchet or dotted quarter note, quaver or eighth note, and then a crotchet, a quarter note. Well, 1.5 plus a half plus 1 makes 3, and I'm counting crotchets or quarter notes, so that's looking like 3/4, isn't it? And in the next bar, well, I've got this group of 4, a quarter each is giving me a total of 1 beat, 2 halves gives me that, and then 1 on its own gives me the 3rd beat. So it's confirming 3/4. Now, in case you're thinking, well, yeah, okay, 3/4, couldn't it be something else? Well, if I halve the numbers, it's not going to work. It's not going to be 1 1/2, 2, because we can't have fractions in a time signature. But you might have thought, well, actually, why couldn't it be 6/8? Because 3/4, 3 crotchets or 3 quarter notes, isn't that the same as 6/8? Okay, 6/8 notes. Well, mathematically, it is the same. The only thing is that if you're in 6/8, then you should be grouping or beaming the notes together to give us a compound duple time. In other words, you would have 2 dotted crotchet beats in a bar, because in compound time it works like this. 6/8, 6 quavers or 6/8 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Organise them into 2 groups of 3. So 1, 2, 3 is the first group, 4, 5, 6 is the second group. Say, what's the total value of each group of 3? Well, that's a dotted crotchet or a dotted quarter note. So I've got 2 dotted crotchet beats or 2 dotted quarter note beats. And that would be how 6/8 would work. Now, does it look as if it's working like that? Well, the first bar could, couldn't it? But the second bar definitely couldn't. If you were writing that in 6/8, you'd have to have these beamed onto the first of these. Then you wouldn't have this line. This would be sitting on its own, and then that would be sitting on its own. So you could see the first half of the bar and the second half of the bar. So it's not just about maths, it's also about how the notes are grouped together or beamed together, to use the proper term. So that's definitely in 3/4. Okay, rhythm C. Oh, let's just clap rhythm B before we go on. So I'll count 3 for nothing. See if you can clap it with me. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There we are. Hope you managed to keep up with those semiquavers and to deal with the dots, because sometimes the dots are the things that cause trouble. Again, rewind it, practice it if you want to. What do you think about C then? What do you think the time signature is here? Well, the second bar is a bit easier to look at than the first bar, just simply because there are fewer notes in it. But we've got an awful lot of quavers or 8th notes, and we've got some semiquavers or 16th notes. So I wonder if we're easier counting this in crotchets, quarter notes, or maybe this is a point where we might think it's easier to count it in quavers or 8th notes. Let's see what happens if we do. If I count it in quavers or 8th notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would give me a time signature of 6/8. Okay, so 6 quavers in a bar or 6/8 notes in a bar. Does that play out on the first bar? 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, it does. So 6/8 could well be the time signature there, but we need to check this thing we were talking about in the last one. Is it really 6/8, or what happens if I double the numbers or halve the numbers? Well, if I double them, 6/8 becomes 12/16. Could be that. It does happen. 12/16 is a time signature that's used, but it's perhaps a little bit less likely. If I halve it, I get 3/4. Well, that's a very common time signature. We just met it, didn't we, in example B? But on the same theme as B, does this group beam together as if it's got 3 crotchet beats in a bar or 3 quarter notes in a bar? I look at this, I don't see anything like it, because if it was 3 crotchet beats in a bar, 3 quarter notes, those 2 would belong together. Then this would be beamed to those 2, and then the last 3 would be beamed together. So it's not doing that at all. This is grouped, beamed together as per 6/8, as we explained in the last exercise. So really, you're looking at a dotted crotchet beat there, or a dotted quarter note beat, another one there, another one there, another one there. So it's behaving like a 6/8 time. Now, theoretically, if you're dealing with 6/8, you should be thinking 2 beats per bar, 2 dotted crotchet beats per bar, or 2 dotted quarter note beats per bar. When you actually want to clap the rhythm, you might want to count all 6 just to be really sure about that. So I'm going to count 6, and then let's see if we can clap this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How did that go for you? Also interesting to find out whether you're comfortable clapping rhythms, not comfortable clapping them, whether you're happy clapping them when they've got 4 at the bottom, but less happy when they've got 8 at the bottom of the time signature. So it's a good way just to be sure about what you're doing. So far then, we've decided that this is in 4/4 or possibly 2/2. We've decided that this is in 3/4, and we've decided that this mathematically has the same number of beats in the bar as this, but it must be in 6/8 because of the beaming, the grouping of notes. So you can see the difference between a 3/4 and a 6/8 example. Let's move on to D. What do we think is going on in D? Slightly longer looking bar in many ways, isn't it? And maybe we're better to go back to counting crotchets or quarter notes. Let's have a look. Both the bars look equally complicated, so let's take the first bar. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 5. 5 beats, 5 crotchet beats, 5 quarter note beats. Let's check the second bar. 1 and 2 and 3. That's going to be 3.5, isn't it? Going up to 4 and 5. So it's definitely 5 beats, isn't it? 5/4. So 5/4 is what we call an irregular time signature. That 5 makes it irregular. And when you have 5 time, you've got maybe 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2 in the way that the notes are beamed together, depending on how a composer wants it played. So that can vary, but there we are, 5/4. We can't make it anything else. It can't be 2.5, 2. That's hopeless. It could be 10/8, but that would seem a bit fussy, wouldn't it? So it's 5/4. Can we clap 2 bars of 5/4? I'll count 5 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there we have it. Now, what about rhythm E? I'm just looking at this one thinking there's only one crotchet or quarter note in it, but there are a lot of quavers or eighth notes. So maybe I should start by counting those quavers or eighth notes. Which bar do you want to pick? Not much to choose. Let's go for the first bar. We're going to count these quavers or eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5, with this taking us up to 6, 7. 7 quavers, 7 eighth notes. Is it the same in the next bar? Should be. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7. So indeed, this is another irregular time signature. It's 7/8. So 7 quavers in a bar, or 7 of those eighth notes in a bar. And it might be grouped together as 3 plus 4 or 4 plus 3. Do you notice here it's 4 plus 3, then it's 3 plus 4. So it's kind of switching between the bars. And again, if you want to clap the rhythm, it might be easier to count those quavers or eighth notes than trying to count anything else. Could it be something else? Well, it's not going to be 3.5, 4. Is it going to be 14, 16? I don't think so. So 7/8 seems to be the comfortable result there. Let's see if we can clap it. Here's 7 for nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there we have 7/8. Okay, we're on to the last one. My goodness, these bars are looking even longer. There's all sorts of notes in here, aren't there? You might just have a look at the way the notes are beamed. You see they're beamed together, that's beamed together. Maybe they belong together. Maybe these belong together. They certainly do because they're beamed together. Maybe they're together. You can begin to see there's sort of 3 possible beats in a bar, so that's a little bit of a clue. But let's do some counting. Maybe the second bar's marginally easier to look at than the first, but there's not much in it. And again, I'm looking at all these semi-quavers, these 16th notes, and these quavers, the 8th notes. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to count quavers, the 8th notes. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that would be 9 quavers, wouldn't it? 9/8 notes. So 9/8. Shall we check the first bar? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's looking like 9/8, isn't it? Could it be anything else? Well, it's not going to be 4.5, 4. Could it be 18 over 16? It's sounding a bit ridiculous. So 9/8. And of course, because it's 9/8, we should be looking at 3 dotted crotchet beats or 3 dotted quarter note beats. And can you see how that actually plays out in the beaming of the notes? You can see where those beats actually come. Okay, now again, in a real piece of music, you really should be thinking these beats. But from the point of view of making contact with the rhythm, let's count it in quavers or eighth notes to be sure we know where we're going. I'll count a bar of 9. Join me for a quick clap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there we have it, a group of rhythms just to be thinking about time signatures, counting the bars, how do the time signatures work, can we clap the rhythms, all kind of rhythms that we would meet in everyday contact with music. So I hope that's been useful.